Greetings and welcome back to Route 303 and our talks with Walt, as we are calling our readings to the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We turn now to a little poem, Red Jacket from Aloft. This is poem number 24 of the 58 of Sands at 70. Again, we're going to come back to Whitman's interest in Native Americans, and it sometimes is a complicated kind of relationship, as we have commented on in our studies earlier. Notice here, interestingly, as the deathbed edition is laid out, we go from a celebration of Grant to a celebration of one of the greatest of the Iroquois chiefs and orators. Our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at LearnStrong.net down that left-hand side, Talks with Walt, our playlist, and that you've been exposed already to our introductory set of comments to Sands at 70. And as we said, we just finished with Death of Grant. Now, our Nortons will give us some information here regarding this poem. It was first published in the Philadelphia Press, October 10th, 1884, and also in the Transactions of the Buffalo Historical Society 3 of 1885. Red Jacket, referenced of course in this poem, his dates are 1750 to 1830, was the great Seaman of the Iroquois, and he's credited with turning Iroquois support to the American side in the War of 1812. Whitman did not attend the ceremony that here is celebrated. And then at the end of the poem, we're going to hear about O'Shea, the legendary 3rd century Gaelic bard, whose poems James Macpherson professed to translate in a rhythmic prose influential in the Romanticism of the 18th century, certainly one that Whitman would have assumed most of his reading audience would have known. Now, we're going to get another poem that will be a tribute to native culture here in just a few poems later in Yonadino, and we're gonna make some more comments about Whitman's sometimes complicated relationship to native cultures. Where on the one hand, as we've seen, he's going to celebrate, and here it's going to be an amazing tribute poem, and then at other times he's going to seem to denigrate native peoples, and we've commented elsewhere about why that seems to be the case in other lectures. Red Jacket from Aloft. You'll remember Aloft is used a number of times, 14 actually total, in all of Leaves of Grass. Upon this scene, this show, going back to the lofty actors of the previous poem, seeing history again as a stage, right? Upon this scene, this show, yielded today by fashion, learning, wealth, notice again our threes, not in caprice alone, some grains of deepest meaning, that's in parenthetics. Again, this is powerful. In other words, what Whitman is going to say is, Red Jacket needs to be and deserves to be respected for his accomplishments, deepest meaning. Happily aloft, who knows, from distant sky clouds, blended shapes, as some old tree or rock or cliff thrilled with its soul. In other words, referencing to the native idea that upon death, the soul will reanimate, possibly in an old tree or a rock or a cliff. Product of nature's son, notice nature is capitalized, and notice the power of son here could be read, when read aloud, could be S-O-N as opposed to what he has here as S-U-N. Notice product of nature's sun, stars, earth, direct. In other words, for Whitman, Red Jacket embodies that idea of coming from the earth itself. A towering human form. You'll remember this word towering, and his use of it there in Song of Joys, the fighter towering in the arena. Towering human form in hunting shirt of film, armed with the rifle, and again, some of this is probably a romanticized view of native peoples, and yet here, the fact that he's celebrating it as towering is, I think, remarkable. A half-ironical smile, curving its phantom lips. Why half ironical? Lots of comment has been made of why he uses that. Like one of O'Shea's ghosts looks down, and again O'Shea, this Celtic reference. Ghosts, you'll remember, has been a number of times in Leaves of Grass, but remember it in Song of the Broad Axe 8. This idea that somewhere aloft, from aloft, that Red Jacket is looking down. Notice he says, "Who knows?" I mean, it's almost as if he's calling into question the very fundamental Christian theology that Red Jacket, there's no way Red Jacket could in any way be aloft looking, that is to say from heaven or whatever. I find this a remarkable little poem for a number of reasons. I mean, it was actually pretty controversial in its day. Today, of course, it's controversial possibly for other reasons. At 2A, what's the primary message here? I think he's arguing that Native leaders in American history are just as worthy of praise and America's respect as those mentioned in the last poem, obviously Grant as well as Lee and Lincoln. At 2B, I love that he mentions the Ocean's reference here, and he just assumes that the reader will understand what he's talking about. Of course, in Whitman's day, maybe it was probably more understandable. At 3A, well, we can mention a number. We can mention all the previous poems of Leaves of Grass where natives, peoples are referenced in positive and obviously sometimes pejorative light. But I just want to mention James Fenimore Cooper's The Last of the Mohicans here, 1826, and that kind of romanticized view of native peoples. Finally, at 3B, when we think about this, and obviously we have a vested interest, what is the native leader that for you is your favorite? Maybe it's Geronimo, maybe it's Chief Joseph, and then for many of us, of course, it's Chief Washakie, just because by virtue of where we live. I'm interested in the ways in which Whitman continues to challenge us right up to the very last poems of Leaves of Grass. Thank you.